It's supposed to be a festive time, but the scene in Berlin is anything but. It does remain under control as you look at these live pictures coming in from Germany following the horrific attack that left 9 dead and 50 injured after a truck crashed into a Christmas market.
Yeah, I mistakenly said it was an accident. This was no accident. This was an attack. A suspect is now in custody. A second man in the truck has been killed. Now, sources telling Sky News the truck may have been hijacked. Perhaps that's why the passenger was dead. We don't know the details. We're going to be finding them. We'll be monitoring the breaking news throughout the evening for the very latest details on the suspect and the motive. Again, so many questions. We don't know exactly what happened, but we will be monitoring the progress of this. Risk and reward starts right now.
Let's pick up on that story. At least 9 dead, at least 50 injured after a truck traveling at least 40 miles an hour plows into a Christmas market in Berlin. Welcome to Risk and Reward. I'm Elizabeth McDonald filling in for Deirdre Bolton. Police still investigating whether terrorism was the motive. They are calling it an attack. We're staying on the story. The suspected driver of the truck arrested. The co-driver now dead. That's what he's being called. He's also being called a passenger. Let's get the latest from Fox News reporter Kitty Logan. She is in London. Kitty.
Well, Liz, a police spokesperson I spoke to in the last couple of hours says that they are still trying to determine whether this was an accident or an intended attack. Those sentiments echoed by the German Interior Minister Thomas de Maizière just a short time ago. Now, police are, of course, still investigating. We do know that a person, I should say, believed to be the driver of that truck has been arrested. Now, the truck, this very large truck, veered off the road and drove up on the pavement, on the sidewalk at around 8 p.m. local time in Berlin. It hit that Christmas market, rolled partway back onto the road, police say. And the latest we're hearing from police about casualties, as you say, 9 people killed, many, many more injured. One of those killed was, we believe, a co-driver or a passenger of that truck. Now, this Christmas market is by the famous Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church. That's in the old western city centre of Berlin. And these Christmas markets, they're extremely popular with the public, likely to be very, very busy at that time of the evening. Police are urging people to stay at home, but they have also emphasised there is no immediate threat throughout the city. But, you know, authorities in Europe have repeatedly warned about the possibility of terror attacks during the festive season, during the holidays. And just a short time ago, the State Department specifically warned about these crowded, busy markets. But we are still waiting for more details to come out about this particular incident. And no doubt we'll learn more about it in the hours to come, Liz.
Thank you, Kitty Logan. Really appreciate it. We also have breaking news. Germany's justice minister does say that federal prosecutors who handle terrorism cases are now taking over what happened with this Christmas market attack in Germany. We've also been reporting that ISIS has been calling for vehicle attacks. Today's attack comes amid warnings of similar threats against Christmas markets in Europe. We heard that from MI5 in England. They warned about that. Let's bring in Dr. Zuhdi Jasser of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Good to have you, Doctor. We always love having you on this show. In addition to this despicable, horrific attack, we also, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, we have the Russian ambassador assassinated live on camera in Turkey. Brussels was also on lockdown earlier today, massive police presence, potential terror probe there. There was also an attack, Dr. Jasser, at an Islamic center in Zurich. 3 people killed there. And also, a 12-year-old child trying to set off a nail bomb near a Christmas market and near a city hall in Germany. Wrap this all up for us, Doctor. Can you help us make some sense of this?
Well, the sense is that we're not countering violent extremism, we're countering violent Islamism, and they will attack as they get squeezed. And I just heard the Iraqi Popular Front related to ISIS in northern Iraq has claimed credit for this in a tweet. I'm talking about the attack in Berlin, and they are finding themselves squeezed by not only Syrian forces but Russia and the rest of the coalition forces that are operating to try to get rid of ISIS. But at the end of the day, the more they get squeezed, the more they're going to go to softer targets. And this is sort of not only obviously a soft target because the vehicle went through just public markets, but it's hard in that it's an attack on Christians. It's an attack near a church. It's at that holiday season. A month ago, there was a warning to Christians and other targets in Europe that there would be religiously based targets coming from Islamists, from Berlin to Brussels, etc. And we've seen attacks now increasing in a crescendo. So the Islamists are being squeezed. The more of the horrific attacks we're seeing from the Syrian regime in Syria, the more they just sort of are pulling out everything they can because of the hopelessness that they're seeing. So we have to start to do something in Syria if we're ever going to see an end to this.
Dr. Jasser, do you think that the authorities overseas have stepped up their ground game there?
I think so, and this is why, you know, the ISIS journal, Rumayya, in October basically said stop using bombs. You can use cars, you can use knives, use whatever you can because you'll be tracked more easily if you are using conventional weapons. So they're going to be using vehicles and others. And Israel's been dealing with this for years, where they know that sometimes the biggest risks are non-traditional weapons such as vehicles or knives, etc. So Europe is beginning to lock down, but I think they're not going to do it effectively because many of these folks won't have a record. They won't be obviously radicalized from a violent perspective, but from an Islamist perspective, they would. And this is why we need to start engaging those and looking and monitoring at Islamist political groups with grievance narratives, with narratives that, I mean, if you look at this police officer in Turkey, he had clearances and other things, and yet he probably was beginning to have some outbursts, be it personally or whatever it is. As you saw, the chant he gave before he assassinated the Russian ambassador was a traditional Salafi chant of Allahu Akbar, preceded by sort of the resurgence of Islamic power, which he talked about.
By the way, that killer shot dead. The assassin who took out the Russian ambassador shot dead. 3 were injured in that attack as well. Dr. Jasser, you know, what seems to happen is there's this promise of action, you know, the memory, but as a memory of the horror fades, you know, only until the next savagery do we really hear what authorities are doing to protect the general population. Are you satisfied with the response from intelligence and from our authorities in stopping these future attacks?
Sorry, absolutely not, because we continue this whack-a-mole program, and the world pays attention for a day or two, and then we go back to our regular business and forget the fact that there are ideologies that are brewing underneath. And in Germany, just a few weeks ago, finally, Angela Merkel began to address the issue of banning the burqa, making sure that people publicly can't wear face masks to prevent their identification. And maybe this might have led to this type of attack, but at the end of the day, it's because they're addressing the problem. It's like treating cancer. Sometimes the patient will get sicker before you do it, and we can't cow down in free society to Islamists with their grievances, with things that we think may bring about terror, when in fact we reformists...
But Dr. Jasser, General Michael Flynn has been criticized for calling it cancer. You just called it cancer.
Well, he's being criticized by Islamist groups that would be the first to be monitored because they're part of the radicalization process by basically making America the enemy, by making anyone who questions, it's not my Islam, but for anyone who says it's not a form of Islam, I think General Flynn was saying there is a form of Islam within the Muslim community that has a cancer. That's not Islamophobic. As a Muslim, I would tell you that's pro-Muslim. There's nothing more pro-Muslim than saying, you know, you guys, we have a problem and we need to address it. And we're not going to get rid of this virus unless we begin the necessary chemotherapy to treat it, which is countering an ideology that's radicalizing Muslims all across the West and also within the petro-Islamic countries in the Middle East.
Thank you. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, always terrific to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime. Thanks, Liz.
We've got